Hello and welcome to Console Classics 101. In this installment, the system I'm talking about is the PlayStation 3. The PS3 was first released in late 2006 as a direct competitor to Microsoft's Xbox 360 and Nintendo's Wii. The PlayStation 3 was the successor to the wildly popular PlayStation 2, which has gone on record as becoming the best-selling console of all time. The PS2 sold in such numbers that even if the PS3 was a roaring success right from the get-go, it still would not have sold in the numbers of the PS2. However, Sony was overconfident with the initial sales of the PS3, and they thought that this system would sell regardless of price. And the original model of the system came in two different SKUs. The first one was $499, and the second one was $599. Those kind of prices in 2006 were insane, and the only kind of people who bought a PS3 right on launch, were people who really could just have money to burn, or they're people that just thought that, they had to have their system regardless of price. The general consumer did not want a PS3 because of the price. And Microsoft capitalized on that, and Nintendo did as well. And for a long time, the PS3's hardware sales were really suffering. Eventually, the price got lowered to more reasonable levels, and Sony released subsequent re-release versions of the system that addressed some of the problems. The version that you're seeing right here is the second version that was released, I believe, in 2008, I think. This is the Slimline model. This version of the hardware is much smaller, much quieter, but unfortunately, unlike the original version of the PS3, this one does not play PlayStation 2 games as backwards compatible. It will still play PS1 version games, so if you have old PS1 discs, this will still play that. There is yet another version that Sony released called the Super Slim, that is even smaller than this, that has a manual loading bay where you have to open it up and put in your disc. And that version is not compatible with PS1 based discs either. But one of the nice things about PS3s is the hard drives. Now, they require hard drives to install games to and save data and, all that stuff. And so a hard drive is absolutely essential to a PS3 because it needs somewhere to store its system data to, its game data to, and etc. Other stuff. But unlike the Xbox 360, the PS3 has just uses a standard off-the-shelf SATA drive. The original model uses a 3.5-inch SATA drive, and the newer versions use a 2.5-inch. And they're very easy and user-replaceable, and replacing the hard drive does not void a warranty, and it's just one of the most easy things to do. All you need to do is just get an appropriate SATA drive. You can get one of pretty much any size you want, right up to like 2 terabytes if you wanted. Recently, I upgraded the hard drive in my PS3. This one came with 120 gigs, and I replaced that with a 750 gig hard drive. You can really do it for whatever size hard drive you want. Just make sure that it's a SATA drive and it's a standard drive, then it doesn't have any data that you want because it will need to be formatted for the PS3. Anyway, going on to its controller. The controller for the PS3 is very similar to the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 1. It's very similar to the old DualShock. There are two different versions of this controller. The first one was called the 6-axis, and this one is called the DualShock 3. The difference between them was the original 6-axis controller does not have rumble support. And it was because Sony was in a legal battle with another company who claimed that Sony had violated the patent. And eventually that was solved, and the DualShock 3 came about. This controller is a motion controller, so it does, have a little bit of motion, like motion sensors built right into it. And, it's a PlayStation 3 controller. One thing that a lot of people complain about is the rear triggers, the L2 and R2 buttons. I don't think the triggers are too terrible, but a lot of people don't like these triggers, especially in comparison to the PlayStation 2's just standard buttons like the L1 and L1 buttons are. L1 and R1, I should say. Yeah, it's a pretty great controller overall. I think the PS3 controller is fantastic. So now I'm going to be talking about 10 games that I think beginners should pick up for the system. So if you're first getting a PS3, and wondering, well, what games should I get, right? Well, I have 10 games that I would recommend that won't break the bank. You can buy these games used and they'll run just fine. they're fantastic games, and you know they're not necessarily the best games for the system, but you're definitely not going to be disappointed with any of these. So let's go into this. First one, BioShock. BioShock was released in 2007, and this is an excellent first-person shooter. It is a spiritual successor to System Shock 2 for PC, and it's one of the best first-person shooters of all time. You should definitely pick this up, even if you have it for for Xbox 360. This is a great game. Eternal Sonata. Eternal Sonata is an RPG that is really, really fantastic. It was known as Trusty Bell in Japan, and this RPG is, you know, very slow, and it's very Japanese, and it's extremely beautiful. This is one of the greatest games that you'll see for like a game that really just show off like the Japanese art style that could be done on next-gen hardware. Fallout 3, the Game of the Year edition. This includes all of the DLC packs for Fallout 3, and Fallout 3 is this open world first-person shooter slash RPG that you can really go anywhere and do whatever you want. Be a badass, be a savior, be a villain, be whoever you want. It's like all the things that Fable should be, except better. Heavy Rain. Heavy Rain is a PS3 exclusive, and it's a story-based game that you can really make your own decisions, and it's much like Fallout 3 in that respect, that you can really make the game and proceed through the game as you want it to unfold. Like, you can discover things, you can not discover things, you can cover up evidence, you can do all kinds of things. It's really, really cool. Murder, mystery, kidnapping stories thing. Katamari Forever. Now, me and my Katamari, or Katamari Damacy, or Beautiful Katamari, or whatever Katamari game you want to go for, the Katamari is always awesome, and the PS3 version is no exception. So a Katamari game is an absolute must. Mass Effect 2, or really any of the Mass Effect games. Mass Effect is one of the greatest trilogies in gaming that has come about in a long time. These are RPGs slash shooters that are really, really, really good. Mass Effect 2, I'm just using as a random example, but you should really pick up the trilogy that includes all 3 games. It's not that expensive, and it's very much worth it, because you'll get literally days and days out of enjoyment. Even if you play these games, you know, just a little bit at a time, these games will last you months, if not years. I love the Mass Effect games. The Orange Box. The Orange Box includes Half-Life 2, Episode 1, Half-Life 2, Episode 2, Team Fortress 2, and introducing a new game called Portal. Now, Half-Life 2 is one of the greatest games of all time, so if that were the only game on this collection, it would be worth picking up for that alone. But in addition to that, it includes both the expansion stories of Half-Life 2, as well as a multiplayer game called Team Fortress 2, and a really interesting first-person shooter puzzle game called Portal. Now, if you haven't heard of Portal, well, get out of the box that you're in, because this game is a must. Singularity. Singularity is a often quickly forgotten about first-person shooter that was released quietly in 2010, and this game really shows off what unique first-person shooters can do. This is like time mechanics and things that you can get, this like time arm thing. It's a really, really cool game. Super Street Fighter 4, or Street Fighter 4, or any variant of Street Fighter 4. This is a fantastic game, great fighting game, great, you know, multiplayer game that you can play with friends online and offline. It's just fantastic. If you've ever liked Street Fighter, this is the best game ever. And lastly, Valkyria Chronicles. Valkyria Chronicles is my favorite game for the PS3. This is an RPG slash strategy game that it just absolutely is fantastic. There's really not enough I can say about this. So those are the games, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.